Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Dear students, we are continuing with our interaction on the cross sectional elements under the geometric design. So far under the cross sectional elements we have talked about the common elements, and then after that we started with the exclusive facilities, and the one which we have taken was the facility for bicyclists or the non motorized transports like cycle rickshaws, and the another thing which we started discussion on was the pedestrian walking facilities, that is the sidewalks or the footpath. In this previous interaction what we have talked about was that what type of width shall be provided, what should be the height of the footpath, what are the various specific features which needs to be provided when you are taking a turn. So, the corner has to be designed, the connectivity with the carriageway has to be designed, and then there were certain specific things which are associated with the environment of the facility, and that is where we stopped that interaction. Today we are going to first of all close the pedestrian walking facilities in terms of the assessment of the walkability of those facilities and whatever the facilities which have been provided in a particular area, and then we will start our interaction on the crossing facilities related to pedestrians. So, let us start with the walkability assessment first of all. Now, when we talk about the walkability assessment and when we have guidelines from Indian Road Congress as well as from Indo SCM, different approaches have been provided, and when we look at those approaches there are two things which will be there. One is either we are going to talk in terms of the simple attributes or the types or the components of the facilities which are there just as such in terms of qualitative nature, or we may be talking in terms of a quantitative nature. Now, when we look at here on a walkability index, let us start from this side where it speaks of the categories being provided, and on these categories from A to F we have the index values being identified. And if you look at it, the index value for a category A is more than 4.5, whereas for F it is less than 3.1, and this is on a scale of 6. So, out of 6 what is the score the particular area is getting in terms of the facilities being provided is what we are looking at, and accordingly we are saying okay, this particular area has a very good facility or may not have a good facility. Now, when you talk about this index value, then how it is being computed is the next question, and that is where if you look at this step number 7, what it says is that we have a ratio of walk score to the walk score maximum value which has been normalized on a scale of 6. So, you have a ratio and being normalized with the 6, that is being multiplied here, what we are going to get is something in this particular area in these ranges which can be going from 0 to 6. Now, when we look at this, it means there are two things which needs to be computed. One is the walk score, another one is the maximum value of the walk score. Now, when we talk about the maximum value of the walk score, then as it is dependent on number of attributes, it means whatever the maximum possible values which we can give to those attributes, on the basis of that and the basis of the satisfaction ratings with respect to those attributes, we are going to get a score, and that particular score is being used as a maximum score here. But in actual this may not be the situation, and therefore, we have to identify that what exactly is happening in an area in terms of the usability, in terms of the acceptability, in terms of the satisfaction by the users on those particular facilities which are provided, and they have been done on 4 counts. One is safety, security, then movement, and fourth one is the comfort. So, these 4 things have been taken together under different values or proportions or coefficients being taken, and that gives us a walk score. So, we will get a walk score and we will get a walk score maximum value, and then on the basis of that the index value will be there. But when we are looking at these 4 components which have been talked here, they are not straightforward values, they are again a combination of different attributes related to the provision of a facility or the facility which has been implemented in that area. If you talk about safety, then safety is associated with the traffic volume and the traffic speed. These are the two factors being considered here. Whereas, if you are looking at the security, then it is associated with the police, the lighting, the availability of the CCTV. So, that ensures the security of the people on that facility. We are talking about the movement. In terms of movement, obviously the features of the facility are going to be there, and that is where we have width, the surface type, the continuity of the facility being provided, the pedestrian amenities which are provided on that particular facility, say a seating space or something like that, or whether the space is free of encroachments or not, or it is being provided with a shade. So, all of these things have been taken together so as to identify that what is this factor walk movement and what is the value which is going to be there for that. And in the same line, if we talk about comfort, then comfort is related with the cleanliness of the facility, the presence or absence of the obstructions on that, and also it takes into consideration the accessibility of that facility for the people who are having different abilities. So, if we look at all of these things, what we found is there are lot many factors which have been taken into consideration so as to arrive at a walk score as well as the maximum value of that walk score which provides us the indexed value for that particular area, so as to have a categorization under this one. Obviously, if you have the things which are lying somewhere below here in this particular range, we should aspire to get to the higher condition of that, and on the basis of the analysis being done on this left hand side, we will be able to identify that where are the shortcomings and there is a need to make an improvement in that particular area. So, this is how a walkability index can be calculated. Now, if we look at the Indo-SCM, Indo-SCM talks here of course for a walkability index or a score, but in different form, and it talks about QoS, that is quality of service. Now, this quality of service is a combination of two things related to an attribute. So, if I say that my eye is an attribute related to a facility, for that attribute in terms of the usefulness, there can be an importance which can be given to that particular attribute, and there can be a satisfaction with respect to the use of that particular attribute by the users, and here the users are pedestrians. Now, when we have these two values available to us, and if we are talking about 10 attributes here as such being defined, then the multiplication of the importance weight and the satisfaction rating together, that is going to give you a value of QoS, and this QoS on the basis of the possibilities of the values which can be there have been categorized in the 5 categories only. There is no F category in this particular case which is being given by Indo-SCM. So, that means we have two approaches. We can utilize any of these approaches so as to identify the usefulness of the facility which is being provided or the adequacy of the facility which is being provided in particular area. Now, with this we close our walking facilities in terms of the walking along the carriageway or on the sidewalk, and let us now start talking about the crossing facilities. Now, when we are talking about these crossing facilities, we have a road being provided, and a person who is standing here needs to cross to the other side, and there is a continuous flow of vehicles on this particular road. Then if no facility has been provided, then this person can move in a haphazard manner so as to cross the road, and that is going to be a very hazardous interaction between the pedestrian and the motorist who are driving their vehicle on this particular road. So, we need to identify the locations where the dedicated facility can be provided in terms of a crosswalk, and if we are providing that facility here say as a crosswalk, and this becomes a location where these people are going to cross towards the other side, then it is always good that as far as possible we provide a direct facility towards the other side. That means, if we are talking about the curb side here, then this facility is going to have 90° with the curb side and you are getting to the other side. So, it makes a minimum distance which needs to be travelled. So, our intention is the minimum distance for the crossing should be there. Now, this is one thing which we are looking at, but then what is the size of this facility which needs to be provided in terms of the marking on the pavement is the next thing which is being talked, where it says that it should be varying in 2 to 4 meters wide facility, and usually we can provide a facility which is 3 meters wide, but it all depends upon what is the amount of flow of the pedestrians at that particular location and whether the flow is unidirectional like this or it is a bidirectional, means both directional movement is going to be there. Sometimes you may find that at that same location there are going to be the bicyclists also who will like to cross, and in that case if that is the situation which is happening and say this is a pedestrian facility being provided which is being defined by the size as 3 meters or 2 to 4 meters, then separately for the bicyclist a space is being marked. So, this is for pedestrians and this is for bicycle. In this case, instead of 2 meters as a minimum, then we are going to have at least 2.5 meters wide facility which now takes care of pedestrians and bicyclists together. Again, depending on that what is the traffic amount of flow which is going to be there for both of the components, we need to see that what is the adequacy or what size is going to be adequate at this particular location for the provision. Now, one thing is that we are providing this facility at one particular location on a mid block, or are we going to provide it at certain distances, say like this. So, this is a spacing which can be there, and this is going to be dependent on the development and the activities on the roadside. If you are in a shopping area, if you are in a residential area, then probably you need to provide these crossing facilities at regular intervals rather than on a highway where these type of things may be required only in a habitation area at a specific location. So, that is what we need to identify again on the basis of the information which we get at a ground level. Some tentative guidelines have been defined. What it says is that the spacing of the crossings can be 80 to 250 meters in the residential areas, and when we talk about the mixed land use or a commercial area, then it can be 80 to 150 meters. So, this is one tentative guideline being provided, and if lot of activity is there of the pedestrians in a particular area and it is a total commercial area all around, then it is always better then we pedestrianize all that area and no vehicles have been allowed in that area. Even the bicyclists who are coming, they should not ride the bicycle, rather they should carry the bicycle along with them. So, this is one another thing which we have to take care of depending on the flows. Now, let us look at this particular photograph and what are the things being depicted in terms of the good facility being provided. What you found is there are two paths being provided, and probably these two paths are for the two-way direction of these pedestrians from one side to the other, but it has been used haphazardly in this particular location as you can see from this photograph. But there is an adequate size which is being provided, and therefore, no person is going to move on this side. There is maybe one or two persons who are here, but they are just at the edge of this particular facility. So, the adequacy has been taken care of. There are provision of the signals there, and that allows these pedestrians to cross from to the other side with safety. There is a textured surface being provided here, and this textured surface can be utilized by the bicyclists. So, we have a facility together for pedestrians and bicyclists here, and this may be for a one-way movement. And the continuity and connectivity is another aspect. So, you can see that there is a this type of a flared system being provided, which we have discussed previously, and this is coming to the level of the carriageway. So, some slope is going to be there in this direction as well as in this direction, and then this bicycle facility, as you look at that, it is going to be connected to the other side in this form. So, it is one of the good designs which can be there, where adequacy, safety, connectivity and continuities have been taken care of in right manner. Let us look at another photograph here. Now, in this photograph what you can see is that we have a good size of a crosswalk, and this crosswalk again is being connected to the sidewalk by way of coming down to the level of the carriageway. Here there is a stop line being provided. So, all the vehicles are going to stop just before this, they are not supposed to cross to the other side. The continuity and the connectivities, if you look at that, then it is coming to this island. Again this type of a connectivity, the continuity in this direction and the continuity in this direction has been ascertained. So, that people can take a left and right depending on their requirements. What you can find is that there is a one crosswalk here and then there is another crosswalk, that is what I was talking, that there may be a requirement to provide these crosswalks at regular intervals depending on in what particular area we are and what is the amount of these pedestrian traffic which requires to cross to the other side. So, we have to take care of that also. And all of these things which are being provided, which are usually defined as a zebra strip because they are white and black alternate lines are there, they are usually 500 mm wide and the length is going to be, means when you say length then we are talking in this direction. So, this is the length we are talking here and this can be 2 to 4 meters, we have already discussed about it. And this stop line, though we will be talking about the markings, but this usually is a 200 mm wide line which is a continuous in nature or along the length of the or the crosswalk. So, this is one another sort of a good design which we need to provide for the crossing at a particular location required by the pedestrians. Now, when pedestrians are crossing in this manner, as we have seen in the previous photograph, and they have landed on an island in between where the traffic has been moving all around, there may be a requirement that the people, the pedestrians who are coming there, they need to take a refuge. Means what? That you have a wide road and say there is a center line and I have say 3 lanes on that side and 3 lanes on this side. So, that is where 3 plus 3 6 lane system is there, which may even be a divided system. So, I may provide a median here like this, and now pedestrians are going to cross at this location because of the requirement. So, what needs to be done? How they can be made safe and secured at this particular crossing? That is what we are trying to see, and that is where the refuge is going to be there. What it says is that if you are having this median, then this median, this can be 2 meters and absolute minimum it can be 1.2 meters wide, so that it can house a pedestrian so who has crossed from this side now is waiting at this particular location and the traffic is continuously moving. So, the traffic has been moving like this and like this. So, as soon as the vehicle moves away, then this pedestrian will start crossing depending on what is the volume of the vehicles on this particular road and whether the pedestrian is getting a gap or not to cross to the other side. Now, this is one way of doing it, but when you have this median which is raised in nature, then it becomes difficult for the differently abled people to cross at this location. In that case, then what are the possibilities which can be done is that if you have this median and we take this median ahead, then the median has been broken, there is a cut in the median being provided. So, my road is like this. So, I am providing a crosswalk facility at this particular location, and that is a one another way of doing it. And in this case, this width is going to be minimum 2 meters because your crosswalk facility in terms of a zebra is 2 to 4 meters. So, that is minimum 2 meters, or it can be increased more than that also. And the level which is being maintained is the level of the carriageway. So, the people who are crossing from this side to the other side, they are just moving at that level itself, they are not going up and down, which is required otherwise in the case when the raised median is being provided. And it will allow the people, say with the wheelchair or people having different assistive devices, so as to cross here. So, this can be one another way of defining it. But when we say this is 2 meters wide, and if we are having a median which is also 2 meters wide in this form, in this direction, so 90 degrees to each other, in that case this particular space which we are going to get is going to be 2 meters by 2 meters, and that is sufficient enough for the pedestrian to stop here to wait and then cross to the other side depending on the opportunities available. So, this is what is being shown in this photograph here. What you can see is there is a median here, there is a stop line, this is the width say 2 to 4 meters, there is a width of this median which is minimum 1.2 meters and we are desiring to have 2 meters here, and it has a nose being provided towards the end so as to demarcate, and there is a different material being used here where the pedestrians can come and stop if there is traffic which is moving on the other side once they have crossed half of it. Sometimes one thing which is happening is that there may be a possibility that the vehicles which are coming from one direction, and instead of going straight and taking a U-turn, they can start taking a U-turn in this area. And if this is happening, then there is a utility of providing the bollards, which is something like 70 to 90 centimeters above the surface, and they have to be placed with a certain spacing so that a pedestrian who is crossing from one side to another side can cross easily. At the same time, this particular space should also be suitable for a person on a wheelchair to cross to the other side, and this is what we discussed when we were talking about the sidewalks, etc. Now, when we have talked about these crossing facilities, the another thing which we have to look at is the crossing speed. So, this crossing speed has been defined here. What it says is that we can design the facilities with respect to the 15th percentile speed, which has been observed as 0.95 meter per second. Usually when we are going for a signal design, then in the case of signal design we are considering the crossing speed as 1.2 meters per second. So, what it says is that if that is not going to be adequate for the people, let us design for 15th percentile, which is quite lower. At the same time, if there is a location where lot of older pedestrians are present, then in that case it can be taken as 0.8 meter per second. Or if you are in a educational or a recreational area where small children are going to be there, then the speeds can be further reduced to 0.5 meter per second. So, depending on where we are designing a facility, we have the flexibility of the use of a crossing speed, and based on that we should try to design the things. One another thing which is being defined is that if you have a 7.5 meter wide crossing facility, then at least 12 seconds should be given so as to cross that particular location, and that should be sufficient enough for a disabled person to cross the road at that location. And when we are talking about this disabled people, or when talking about there is a lot of traffic which is continuously going on and it is not stopping, then we can also have the pedestrian activated signals being provided at that location, where as soon as there is a sufficient number of pedestrians, then these signals can be activated by one of them, and it will turn the light red for vehicular traffic and green for the pedestrian movement. In case the pedestrians are having problems with their vision, then the audible signals is another aspect which can be looked at. Here what you can see is that there is a button which can be utilized so as to operate it, and when you push it, then it is going to give you a green, but that does not mean that one single pedestrian comes at a location and pushes it and goes to the other side. In that case, the vehicle will not be able to move on the road. So, there is a certain manner in which these things needs to be operated. This is a audible signal. So, once it is being operated and it has markings in a manner that visually impaired can understand and push it, and this allows them to understand what is happening on the road and then when to cross and when not to cross. The other way of looking at the crossing speeds is by way of the classification of the roads which needs to be crossed in terms of the lanes. It can be a 2 lane undivided, or in the divided systems it can be 4 lane, 6 lane or 8 lane. That means we have a dual carriageway with either 2 lanes, 3 lanes or 4 lanes on one side. Here the average crossing speeds have been defined. They are not being defined as the 15th percentile as we discussed in the previous slide. And what you found is that they are varying from something like 98.8 meters per minute to as low as 72.4 meters per minute, changing from male to female. That roughly comes out to be 1.6 meters per second to 1.2 meters per second as an average crossing speed being provided. Another aspect which has been looked at in the guidelines is the critical gap, which is taken in seconds, and it defines that how much gap is there between the vehicles which are coming at a particular location, and therefore it is suitable for the pedestrian to cross during that particular time gap to the other side. and as soon as means they cross to the other side and the vehicle arrives at that one. So, at this point that much gap is available, which ensures the safety of those pedestrians while they are crossing to the other side. Okay, so, that is another aspect which can be looked at. Here we are talking about the warrants for the pedestrian crossing facilities, and these warrants have been included new, and this is a changeover from the previous warrants which were dependent on accident rate, which were dependent on the long waiting time or the speed of the traffic, if it is high, if it is low. So, some vagueness was there in those particular warrants, which have been made more clearer now, and what you can see is it says that in a case of any of these conditions or a combination of these conditions, if they exist, then the control measures needs to be provided at the mid block crossings, and we have to provide one or the other type of a pedestrian crossing facility. So, first one speaks of the wait time, and here the wait time has been defined as 45 seconds. So, if a person has to stand on the curb side and wait for 45 seconds, that means the traffic is too high and we should go for certain control measures, or we should go for providing some additional or different type of a facility for the crossing of pedestrians at this location. Now, this is also being correlated with the vehicular flow, and this vehicular flow is being talked for 2-lane undivided or a 4-lane or a 6-lane divided system, and the respective values are 940, 1250 or 1860 PCU per hour. So, there is a correlation between this delay or the wait time and this vehicular flow. So, as soon as the vehicular flow reaches this value and it goes beyond this value, it is going to cause a wait time of 45 seconds or more than 45 seconds. Now, another criteria which is talked here is in terms of the speed. If the speed increases beyond 40, 60 or 80 kilometers per hour for the respective 3 categories of the roads which we talked, then in that case also the control measures or the provision of the type of the pedestrian crossing facility should be taken care of. And this is further correlated with the psychological gap size. Now, psychological gap size means that if the vehicle is approaching towards you and you as a pedestrian is crossing the road, then how much is the distance which is there? You are not going to evaluate in terms of distance, you are basically looking at in terms of the speed of the vehicle which is approaching towards your path, and then finally that results into the time which has been there when as soon as you crossed it and the vehicle approached at that particular location. So, that sort of a psychological gap size is being talked again for the 3 road conditions, that is 2-lane undivided, 4-lane divided and 6-lane divided, and the respective values are 1.65 seconds, 2 seconds and 2.55 seconds. So, these are the warrants which needs to be taken care of while considering the crossing facilities or providing them at the mid block locations. Now, this is a nomograph where what we have discussed in the previous slide is being shown. Now, what are the attributes which have been considered? Let us look at that. One thing which we are considering here on an x axis is a peak hour passenger flow. So, at that location whatever is the peak hour passenger flow is being talked here in pedestrians per hour. On y axis we are talking about the vehicular flow, and this vehicular flow is in the PCUs per hour. When we talk to the other side, then we have the psychological gap size, and then another attribute is the vehicular speed in this direction being taken. So, we have these 4 things in hand, and based on that we can find it out what is happening on the other side. Say if we have a value of this P and the value of this V. So, P is for pedestrian flow, V is for vehicular flow, and we have got these from the counts being taken on a location. We will get some value, and here this is being talked as PV square. So, when we are looking in this form, say we get a point here. Now, this point defines that we should try to provide a raised tabletop. Now, what you can find is that there are certain values being shown of the PV square. If the PV square is 1 into 10 to power 8 or less than that, then there is no need of providing a facility, but this what I am talking about a 2-lane undivided road. Similarly, it can be 4-lane and a 6-lane divided road system, they are again different. As soon as it changes from 1 into 10 to power 8 to another value, then we have this segment in which a facility has to be provided, and this is being divided into 2 parts by way of using the acceptable wait time of 45 seconds or the vehicular flow corresponding to that, which is 943 PCU per hour, and this divides in the form that if it is falling in below this one, then we can go for a zebra crossing, but if it is falling above this one, then we can go for a raised tabletop crossing. And when we are beyond this, then signalized control system can be there, and when we are beyond this value, then the grade separated system can be provided. If we talk here in terms of the PGS, and the relationship has been shown here. So, this is the relationship of the PGS with the volume or the speed. So, these two things have been defined. Now, this PGS has been defined into three categories as high risk, medium risk and low risk, and this can also be correlated with the speeds of the traffic moving on a road, and accordingly we can find it out whether the condition on this particular road is acute or it is still comfortable, and therefore, there may or may not be a requirement of provision of a facility. So, this chart gives you the values here for the three cases which we were talking about. Different values are there as you can see here, and then on the basis of that the categorization when and when not to provide a type of a facility or what type of a facility has been defined. So, you can see that this value is going to as high as 1.17 into 10 to the power 11 in the case of 6 lane divided system. Now, let us look at these crossing facilities and intersection and the important things being done there. What you can find is the very good crossing facility being provided, which is connected. It is connected at this footpath level also. So, everywhere it is connected in this form. There is this approach being provided, this is defined as bulb out system. So, what we are doing is that the total width of the road was this much or the carriageway was this much, but it has been reduced to this. So, the interaction time with the vehicular traffic has been reduced. So, we are trying to improve upon the safety of the pedestrians. But when you do this bulb type, what you can find is an additional lane is available which can be used for the parking of vehicles here. So, that is one additional advantage you are going to get. Okay, so, this is all way we are going to provide the facilities, but in this case we are coming to the carriageway level. But if we talk about the another one, here the level of the footpath is this one and the facility has been maintained at the same level. That is where there is a slope on this side and there is a slope on the other side for the vehicular traffic to get up and down, and this is 1 in 8 as a slope being provided. We look at another such orientation. So, there can be different type of orientations, all depends upon what type of movements or flexibilities we can provide at that intersection. So, here again you can find that we have the median, then in the median we have the pedestrian refuse, then this is a channelization, and then again the channelization has been marked for the usage of the pedestrians. There is the continuous movement all around. So, everything is being marked in a perfect manner, but the extension here is that we are also providing the oblique movements for the pedestrians from one side to the other side. They need not to go like this, they can simply go straight in this form also. So, these are all the ways, the innovative ways which can be utilized by you while you are designing any of the facility. So, with this we close our today's interaction, and we will be continuing our interaction on the cross sectional elements whatever is being left, and then we will move to the service road, and finally, we will have an introduction towards the road furniture in the next interaction. Till then, thank you and bye.